We the people.
We the people.
We the people.
We the people.
We the people of the United States.
In order to form a more perfect union.
A more perfect union.
More perfect union. Did I do that right?
And to the republic
For which it stands.
One nation.
One nation.
One nation.
Una nación.
One nation, under God.
Indivisible.
With liberty
and justice for all.
We begin tonight with a big development in this story that we've been watching very closely, the debate that's happening overseas right now over legislation to execute people for being gay. It's the Anti-Homosexuality Bill of 2009. It's being considered in the nation of Uganda. And a number of Americans, prominent and otherwise, are implicated in the genesis of this bill. As written, it calls for a sentence of life in prison for being gay. It also calls for death by hanging for being gay and being HIV positive. Today, a Ugandan official announced that those two most controversial provisions in the bill will be dropped. The Ugandan ethics minister telling Bloomberg News that an amended version of the anti-gay bill will not include the death penalty or life imprisonment. According to this official, the new version of the anti-homosexuality bill is expected to be presented to the Ugandan parliament in 2 weeks. Taking the death penalty and life imprisonment out of the bill is, of course, a victory for opponents of the legislation. But if only those two things come out, what stays in are things like a sentence of 3 years in prison for knowing somebody is gay and not reporting them to the government. 7 years in prison for what they call attempting to commit the offense of homosexuality, whatever that means. Being gay would also still be an extraditable offense. So if a citizen of Uganda was suspected of being gay, even in some other country somewhere, even in the United States, that would be grounds to extradite that person back to Uganda so they could be prosecuted and, if convicted, imprisoned for being gay. As far as we know, all those penalties are staying in the revised version of the bill. And what's more, the revised version of the bill will apparently add something new. Uganda's ethics minister telling Bloomberg that in addition to formulating punishments for gay people, the bill will also include counseling. Counseling to, quote, and I'm quoting here directly, attract errant people to acceptable sexual orientation. Putting an exclamation point on the connection we drew last night between American conservatives' pet cause, the curing homosexuality industry, and this bill overseas. Last night on this program, I talked with Richard Cohen, an unlicensed American would-be therapist who's head of a group called the International Healing Foundation. They say they can change people from gay to straight. They have a variety of trainings and books and CD and DVD series for you to buy if you believe the debunked unscientific claptrap that they're selling. Mr. Cohen's organization dispatched a staffer to address the Ugandan parliament earlier this year and an anti-gay conference, and the organization donated copies of Mr. Cohen's dubious training materials and books to the promoters of the Kill the Gays legislation. Mr. Cohen's writings have been used in Uganda as if they provide a scientific justification for this new anti-gay bill, even though Mr. Cohen says now that he's not at all in favor of the legislation.
Good afternoon. Welcome to this much-anticipated event, a debate and discussion with Christopher Hitchens and Alistair McGrath on the topic, Poison or Cure, Religious Belief in the Modern World. My name is Tom Banchoff. I'm director of the Berkeley Center for Religion, Peace, and World Affairs here at Georgetown, and the co-convener of this event, along with the Ethics and Public Policy Center. The Berkeley Center is part of a university-wide effort to make Georgetown a global leader in the interdisciplinary study of religion and in the promotion of interreligious understanding. This effort builds off our academic strengths, our location here in Washington, D.C., our international networks, and Georgetown's Catholic and Jesuit identity.
Charlotte. Jeff is a contributing editor to Harper's Magazine. He has been a frequent guest on this show for his coverage of The Family, the secretive religious organization best known because it runs C Street, the infamous home for lawmakers in Washington, D.C. that's been tied to a number of political sex scandals this year. As Jeff has previously reported on this show, The Family is directly connected to the Uganda Kill the Gays legislation. And Jeff joins us now to bring us some new reporting on that subject tonight. Jeff, thanks very much for your time.
Hey, Rachel, good to be here.
Just for context and to reiterate here, the man who introduced the Kill the Gays bill in Uganda is a member of The Family, yes?
Yes, it's a young member of Parliament, David Bahati, a rising star who has been over to the United States for our National Prayer Breakfast and has taken something of an organizing role in the Ugandan National Prayer Breakfast and has been involved with The Family for some time.
Now, as I understand it, you have some new reporting today about when and where Mr. Bahati first announced his intent to introduce the Kill the Gays bill.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of us have focused on that March Kampala conference and the idea being that the Ugandans sort of got this idea from Scott Lively and Richard Cohen and so on. It seems David Bahati was thinking about this before that, as far back as the October 2008 Ugandan National Prayer Breakfast, where he floated the idea in a private meeting. There was some pushback. It's important to acknowledge that a lot members of the family sort of expressed some disapproval of it, but in the balance, as one family associate explained to me, there's always a balance between access and accountability, access to power and holding power accountable, and in that instance they seem to prefer continuing the access to power of these Ugandan officials rather than stepping in and nipping that thing in the bud.
And after all that, you still have to credit religion with being the source of ethics and morals.
When he leaves, we have the meeting with the Family Life Network, by the way, which I attended as well, in which now the strategy came up. How do we stop the international gay agenda? And it was one of the person from the parliament who is on tape saying that after listening to Lively, the parliament felt that we need a new law in Uganda, which would take into consideration the international gay agenda. So then they came up with this bill.
Reverend Kaoma told us today that the misinformation spread during these conferences is often corrected here in America, but not necessarily so overseas.
So we have this problem of evangelicals going there, making statements, and then coming back to America, continuing to enjoy life, but they leave the fire burning. And today, even the great man, Lively can tell you now that he's opposed to the bill. You know, has he told the Ugandans that? He hasn't. But he told the American audience. But the people he misled are Ugandans.